Assassins, shadows in the dark, silent reapers who kill without a sound. Other than their unmatched skills in stealthy movements and deadly strikes, assassins employed a plethora of tools and weapons to aid them in taking down their target swiftly and quietly. Hi everyone, I'm Zihan, and this is a video in a series based on Assassin's Creed Valhalla. In this series, we're going to talk about assassins. If you find the series interesting, do give us a like and share it to your friends so that more people can enjoy it. In the previous video, we have already talked about the origins of the word assassins, the definition of assassination, and 5 common conceptions about assassins. Today, I'll be talking about the tools of the assassin's trade, the weapons and methods employed by ancient assassins to assassinate targets. We shall analyze these weapons and methods on a more technical aspect. Because of this, we've asked our technical writer Ziwen, who is a practicing mechatronic engineer, to help us with the script. He has also written scripts for several previous episodes. You know the drill, links in the description below. Now, let's get back to business. In the various installments of Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft has given them different weapons according to their timeline and setting. For example, in the latest installment, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, based on the age of Vikings, when the Scandinavian seafarers invaded the British Isles back in 873 AD. As such, most of the weapons available in the game are Norse weapons, such as axes, spears, and bows. Not very assassin-like, aren't they? Well, it would make sense because Vikings aren't exactly known as silent killers. They're usually portrayed as brawny warriors charging at their enemies on the battlefield. In fact, starting from Assassin's Creed Origins, the series has pivoted to focus more on lore development and RPG aspects rather than stealthiness and sneakiness. In Origins, the beginnings of the Assassin Brotherhood from a secretive group known as the Hidden Ones was explored. The recent installments have given more time and space to explore the conflicts between the Assassin Brotherhood and the Order of Templar across different eras. Hidden Blade. Most of the Assassin's Creed games feature the signature Hidden Blade, which is a retractable blade usually concealed in a bracer or wristband worn on the wrist by the members in the Assassin Brotherhood. A hidden blade is about 20 to 25 centimeters long and is designed for the assassins to take out a target swiftly and silently, even among a crowd. A trigger ring is worn on the ring finger connected to a string, which when tugged will trigger a mechanism to extend the blade forth from its casing. In different installments of the series, the hidden blade looks and works a little differently. According to the lore in AC, the first hidden blade was used by a Persian assassin, Darius, to slay King Xerxes I to stop his tyranny. Later on, it was passed down to Darius' descendant, Aya, who later gave it to her husband, Bayek. When Bayek was fighting Eudorus, a Greek scribe, he wore his hidden blade on his left hand. In that brawl, Bayek was in a disadvantageous position, where Eudorus was on top of him, and Eudorus' hand was wrapped around Bayek's fist. Being held in the chokehold by Eudorus, Bayek's last resort was to use his hidden blade to pierce Eudorus' throat, severing his ring finger in the process. As a result, it has become a tradition or custom among assassins who receive the hidden blade to amputate their ring fingers. In fact, this was a necessity until Altair, the protagonist of the first Assassin's Creed, modified the hidden blade to allow the blade to be extended without sacrificing the user's ring finger. This also helped prevent the assassins from being identified from their severed ring fingers. In AC Valhalla, the Viking Ava, either male or female, has a hidden blade as well. However, different from other hidden blades in the AC universe, Ava's hidden blade, similar to Darius, was located on top of the wrist instead of below. Now, we can spend a whole video talking about different hidden blades in various installments, but I suppose we might be more interested in whether hidden blades truly existed in ancient times. A quick search on YouTube and you could see hundreds, if not thousands of videos showing us that hidden blades can exist in real life and are functional. Most of the hidden blades we see are either models made by toys manufacturers and cosplayers, or real, functional sharp knives made by forge companies and enthusiasts. The design of any retractable objects most likely depend on one of these few mechanisms: spring-loaded, gears, sliders, or any combination between the three. We won't be going too deep into the workings of hidden blades, as there are just too many different designs, but just to illustrate how it works, let us take the example of a simple, spring-loaded mechanism. Hidden blades, which work using the potential energy stored in a spring attached to the bottom of the blade, are locked in place by a pick. When the string connected to the pick is taut, the whole of the pick on the spring is released. The blade will travel along with the spring, extending out of the casing. But how do we retract the blade? Simple. To retract the blade, we need to do two things. 1. To pull back the blade, and 2. To lock it in place. To retract the blade, we can connect the push lever to the bottom of the blade. Pushing this lever will send the blade back to its casing. At the same time, we have to tug the string, moving the pick and making way for the spring to go back to its original position, before releasing your torque and locking the spring back in place. Now, this is just a very simple example, and over the years, hidden blade hobbyists and enthusiasts have come up with more complicated designs employing multiple strings or elaborate gear systems, which makes extending and retracting the blade easier, faster, and more reliable. Now, the question most of you might ask is, could hidden blades have really existed in the past? As explained briefly just now, to make a hidden blade, an elastic component is crucial. The most efficient component to achieve the travel length required will be a coiled spring or an elastic band. However, coil springs were not invented until the 15th century, and rubber elastic bands didn't exist before the 19th century. As such, hidden blade could not have existed in ancient times. In ancient times, the concept of a spring-loaded blade might have existed, but there was no way of engineering and materializing it using ancient technology and materials. Moreover, despite how cool and awesome these hidden blades look, there's little practicality for them in real life. Other than its biggest selling point, which is concealability, there's not much additional benefit. They are only used for assassination and are not useful for combat, as the position under the wrist is awkward, and the thin blades, which break easily from a blow of a sword, are not suited for parrying. The activation mechanism could pose a risk to yourself or the people around you, because an accidental flick of the wrist could easily extend the blade, slicing your fingers and even unintendedly harming or even killing someone who isn't your target. And going back to the point of concealability, the necessity of wearing a long sleeve shirt and gloves to cover the bracer and the trigger string could also reduce an assassin's agility and dexterity. Nevertheless, it's undeniable that the hidden blade is an iconic weapon that spurred many creative minds to create their own version of it. What then is the staple weapon for ancient assassins? Daggers and knives. In the Final Fantasy series, Assassin's Dagger is a recurring weapon that can inflict the death status on enemies, causing insta-kills. This is a reference to how assassins use their daggers, striking the target's vital spots such as their throat or their heart, taking their lives with only a single strike. Daggers and knives are preferred by many assassins, obviously because they are small and easily concealed. They can be kept out of sight, avoiding the attention of the public eye, and can be hidden away quickly after the deed was done. Among the assassinations committed by the famous Order of Assassins, a significant amount of them are conducted using a knife or a dagger. Even the famous Roman dictator Julius Caesar was assassinated using daggers. During his later years in power, circa 50 BC, he began to concentrate his political power and disregarded the Senate. Unsatisfied with his authoritarian ways, a group of rebellious Senate members, led by Brutus and Cassius, conspired to assassinate Julius. Contrary to the common practice of staying hidden and living immediately in stealth after the assassination of Julius Caesar was an elaborate show of defiance planned by the perpetrators, an extravaganza if you would. 60 of them surrounded the defenseless dictator and stabbed him 23 times in total. This incident was even incorporated into Assassin's Creed Origins, with the fictional co-founder of the Hidden Ones, Aya, striking the first hit using a hidden blade. Ironically, this act, which was set in motion to free the Roman Republic from her dictator, has actually led to a series of civil wars, eventually leading up to the founding of the Roman Empire. To kill with a dagger or knife, the assassin must be very close to their target. In order to get close to the target, an assassin may employ several methods to mask their intention. For example, they may disguise themselves as a guest or a person seeking help in order to be invited to be in the same room as their target. An example of an assassination carried out with a dagger would be Jin Ke's attempt on King Zheng of the Qin state, or Qin Shi Huang, before he unified the warring states of China. This piece of history was recorded in biographies of assassins in Sima Qian's Records of the Grand Historian. The year was 227 BC. Jin Ke, a retainer of Crown Prince Dan of the Yan state, was ordered to assassinate King Zheng. His plan was to disguise as a nobleman in distress, pleading the Qin state for mercy. He hid a sharp poisoned dagger in the map scroll that was to be presented to King Zheng. When he unrolled the scroll and took the dagger, he grabbed King Zheng's shirt and attacked him. Unfortunately for Jin Ke, King Zheng managed to escape by tearing off his sleeve for the first strike. Later on, a royal doctor, Xia Wuju, who saw that the king was in danger, hurled a medicine pouch at Jin Ke, distracting him and slowing him down. Thanks to the doctor's aid, King Zheng managed to grab hold of a sword and strike Jin Ke down. Even though Jin Ke's attempt at assassination failed, he became quite a legendary assassin, inspiring various movies and shows, and even appearing in games like Honor of the Kings and Fate Grand Order, even though he was gender-swapped in the latter. Other tactics such as planting sleeper agents and stalking a target sneakily were frequently used as well, so that the assassin can get close to the target without them being aware. Shinobis or ninjas from Japan are also a prominent example of assassins who use concealment tactics. Side note, ninjas were also the main actors in psychological warfare, where they play tricks to confuse their enemies. If you are interested in that, do check out this video. From cats to K-pop, a brief history of psychological warfare. Ranged weapons. Next up, we'll talk about ranged weapons. In many video games, especially class-based RPGs, classes like assassins or thieves are usually good at using ranged weapons like bows and arrows and crossbows. In Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the player is given the choice to wield different bows with mythical backgrounds befitting its Age of Vikings settings. However, is it true that an assassin in the past would choose bow and arrows as their main weapon? It might seem intuitive that an assassin may use bow and arrows because they are silent, quick, and have a great range. However, we must bear in mind that a bow and arrow, or even crossbow, are quite large and heavy. I mean, look at this. Do you think you can hide it in a shirt or something? This means you would require a perfect vantage point, access and escape routes, and exceptional marksmanship. And so, that's the reason why we don't see that many examples of a successful bow and arrow assassination. Or you could just gang up on your target in a secluded place, which works too, I guess. The added range of ranged weapons eliminated the need to get close to the target, and with a little planning, assassins may trick their targets into a place far from any eyewitnesses. One could have mastered as an accident during a hunt, for example. Sun Ce from the Three Kingdoms era of China was ganged up by assassins who managed to pierce his cheek with an arrow, but his cause of death is disputed. Some say he died the same night he was wounded. Another account records that while he was recuperating, he saw a mirror one day. Seeing his wounds and ugly face, he was enraged and slammed a table, breaking his wound and causing him to die. Talking about ranged weapons, we must not forget the ninjas, who are notorious for their shurikens or throwing stars. Other throwing weapons used by ninjas include kunai, a wedge-shaped knife with a finger hole at the top of the handle, and needles used to strike the target's vital spots. Ninjas have quite a flexible philosophy when it comes to weapons. They regard their ninja tools as both tools and weapons. For example, kunais were actually a cheap gardening tool, a trowel which was readily available and turned into a weapon. Similarly, female ninjas or kunoichis may disguise themselves as a commoner and use the kansashi or hand needle in their hair to strike down their targets. Remember Jin Ke? Apparently his friend, Gao Jianli, also attempted to take Qin Shi Huang's life. Gao Jianli was a musician from the Yan state who played for Qin Shi Huang. He played a type of instrument called zhu, which resembles the Chinese lute or pipa. He gradually won the music-loving emperor's heart with his skill, and Qin Shi Huang was standing closer to him each time. Eventually, Gao Jianli hid lead pieces in his instrument and attempted to kill Qin Shi Huang when the emperor walked too close. Poison. In Assassin's Creed, the Poison Blade upgrade is available to make the hidden blade even more lethal. Adding poison will ensure a target's death shortly after, assuming that the strike did not hit a vital part of their body. There are many types of poison employed by assassins. Generally, it can be classified into plant, mineral, and animal. Plant poisons are mostly used in Europe. They are extracted from datura, deadly nightshade, and mandrake. Popular in China, mineral poisons are metallic compounds or mineral salts of lead, mercury, arsenic, and copper. Animal poisons are extracted from poisonous animals like snakes or spiders, riskier to get, thus rarer. Rather than applying poison on weapons, assassination by poison is usually carried out by making the target ingest the poison. In the Han Dynasty alone, 2 royals were poisoned to death, Xu Pingjun and Emperor Zhi. Many royalties and nobilities vying for power were either poisonous or poisoned. Poison was a very effective way of dealing with political or economical enemies because it was difficult to trace. The increase in poisonings in medieval Europe eventually led to the rise of apothecaries, effectively pharmacies in the olden world. In China, the royalties instituted the practice of testing poison in food with a silver needle to prevent themselves from being poisoned. Before eating a meal, a servant would poke the food with a silver needle, and if it turns black, the food would be regarded as poisoned. However, does this method truly work? In ancient China, the most readily available poison would be arsenic trioxide. In the process of refining arsenic salts to make arsenic trioxide, sulfide byproducts are produced as well, most of which are not readily dissolvable and therefore very low in toxicity. And when silver reacts with sulfides, they form silver sulfide, a black solid, which was the reason behind the needle turning black. So, in fact, not only that this method does not work, it may cause an innocent chef to be accused. In conclusion, ancient assassins had to be cautious and plan their moves ahead to catch the target unawares, trapping them in an inescapable situation. Several tactics such as sleeper agents and careful time and location selection will give an assassin the best opportunity to take down the target. In this video, we have talked about the hidden blade, its mechanism and practicality in ancient times. We've also discussed the actual weapons and methods used by ancient assassins such as daggers, bow and arrow, throwing weapons, and poison. What other ancient weapons and methods have we missed? Will you be interested in a more in-depth video about ancient assassin organizations such as the Order of Assassins or Japanese ninjas? Which assassin character is your favorite? Let us know in the comments down below. And don't forget to hit the like button, smash the subscribe button, and definitely share this video like shurikens flying in all directions. With that, stay safe and may we meet in the next video.